Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's deep dive event offered through NOAA Ocean Exploration and the Ocean Exploration Cooperative Institute and supported by the National Marine Sanctuary Foundation. For today's program, I know we have registrants from far and wide, so I'd like to ask that you please say hello in the chat box and let us know where you're joining us from. During tonight's event, we're going to take a deep dive into the technologies used to explore, study, and connect us to some of the most remote parts of the ocean. And some of you are likely familiar with the more standard technologies used throughout ocean exploration. Though they're common in the industry at this point, they're all evolving technological marvels that make research in some of the most remote places in the world possible. Briefly, these standard technologies include highly advanced research vessels like the NOAA ship Oceanographer, or Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution's research vessel Atlantis, or the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute's soon-to-arrive new research vessel, the RV David Packard, just to name only a few. These ships are essentially floating mobile exploration and research stations that provide stable platforms where explorers can deploy equipment, they can manage and analyze samples collected at sea, and they can collaborate in real time with colleagues on shore. And through state-of-the-art multi-beam sonar systems, we're now able to create beautifully detailed maps, mapping a swath of the seafloor up to 6 times as wide as the depth of the water that we're in, as well as collect data on the composition of the seafloor, like this map, which is showing methane bubbles coming from the seafloor, and organisms in the water column. For example, here, the lines near the surface show dense layers of biology, like zooplankton, fish, and gelatinous creatures. And the vertical lines are, again, bubble plumes percolating from the seafloor. We also use an increasingly wide variety of submersibles and underwater robots to collect and record information from a wide range of ocean habitats, from the deepest canyons and trenches to the water column itself, imaging fantastic organisms like this pelagic sea cucumber. So over the last few decades, submersible technology has continued to advance to overcome the challenges of exploring deep waters, allowing explorers to visualize, sample, and survey our planet's deep sea environments with greater and greater ease. But it's still not easy, and incredibly talented engineers continue to work very hard to increase the efficiency, the scope, and the speed at which we can explore our vastly unknown ocean. So you're likely familiar with human-occupied vehicles, or HOVs, like Woods Hole's HOV Alvin, which is capable of transporting a small team of scientists and pilots to the seafloor to conduct research firsthand, and remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, like NOAA Ocean Exploration's ROV Deep Discoverer. And these are tethered vessels, tethered to a vessel, and they're controlled by ship pilots to direct their operation.
There are also autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, which are pre-programmed robots like this AUV Sentry that drift, dive, or glide through the ocean without real-time control by human operators. And there are also uncrewed surface vehicles, or USVs like this sail drone. And the sail drone is designed to roam the ocean's surface, kind of like a boat, collecting oceanographic and atmospheric data, but without a human on board at all. And most recently, we're testing out a number of different vehicles that can be hybrid, acting as both ROVs and/or AUVs, and even vehicles that can communicate with one another under the ocean. And lastly, you might be familiar with the use of telepresence technologies, which through satellite technology allow us to bring real-time ocean exploration from the seafloor to anyone with an internet connection anywhere in the world with minimal delay, as low as 1.5 seconds from the bottom of the ocean to your living room in some cases. And these technologies really only scratch the surface of all of the ocean exploration technologies that exist. So here's a little inspirational clip to get us started in our conversation today.
Go ahead, Dive Super.
Let's descend at 15 meters a minute, hold at 50.
Good copy. Coming down.
Typically on the Oceanographic, typically no ocean exploration, we're leading remotely operated vehicle expeditions and mapping expeditions. We've dialed in telepresence exploration where we're connecting with folks on shore, where we're connecting with folks on the ship. We're streaming our video to shore, we're streaming our data to shore. We're using the latest in ocean mapping technology. We're always making improvements to our remotely operated vehicle system. And we need to think about what ocean exploration looks like 5 years from now. Maybe not next year, maybe not on this cruise, but down the line, we're working towards those goals.
The constant forward moving of technology is really important to the science. I mean, innovation is how we move forward.
So I think that the clip that we just shared with you is a great introduction to modern ocean exploration technologies. And what we really want to point out as we get started here is that today's technologies and those that are emerging as the cutting edge technologies of tomorrow are really allowing us to explore the ocean in increasingly systematic, efficient, faster, and non-invasive ways. With continuing innovation and ingenuity, our ability to observe the ocean environment and its resident creatures is beginning to catch up with our imaginations, expanding our ability to appreciate, understand, and therefore better manage and protect what's still largely undiscovered. I'm Susan Haynes with NOAA Ocean Exploration, and I'm joined tonight by my ocean exploration colleague, Liz Hoadley. Liz, would you like to say hi?
Hi, everyone. I'm excited and hope you're so glad you're here to join us and can't wait to share tonight's amazing program with you. And I'll be presenting some extra resources for you to explore afterwards at the end.
Terrific, Liz. Thanks so much, and we'll see you just a little bit later.
Thanks, Susan.
So to start our deep dive with our visiting experts, we'd like to ask you all to answer this question using a Mentimeter code. So to provide your answer, you can go to menti.com and input the voting code, or you can scan the QR code on the screen with your phone, and you'll be sent directly to the interactive poll. Or you can use the direct link that's posted in the YouTube description. So our question for you all is, what topics related to ocean technology are you most interested in learning about tonight? A, the latest and most innovative ocean exploration tools. B, our experts' view of the future of ocean exploration. C, resources that are available to learn or teach more about this topic. D, opportunities to get involved, whether you're a teacher, a student, or the general public. Or jobs and careers that support this field and the pathways that lead there. Or F, all of the above. So take a moment to answer that question, and while you're taking care of that, our plan tonight is to spend about 50 minutes directly with our visiting ocean technology experts, providing time for you all to dig into the topic of ocean exploration technologies and ask some questions. And we'll then briefly share a few of the fantastic education resources we have available to bring this topic into classroom instruction, as well as some information about our upcoming educator professional development opportunities. And tonight we've welcomed educators, students, and the general public to this event. But for educators in particular, while this learning opportunity is distinct from our educator professional development, we're absolutely sure that you're going to gain some terrific knowledge that will support the work that you're doing in the classroom. So thank you for saying hello in the chat. I haven't gotten a chance to see where everybody's from, but I'm expecting that we have joined from far and wide across the country. I am on the East Coast tonight, so I am spending my evening with you along with my colleagues who you will meet in just a moment. Can we go ahead and pull up the answers to that Mentimeter question? Okay, looks like primarily all of the above. And we have a lot of folks that are interested in ways to get involved. So we will keep that in mind as we speak about the different items that we've got planned tonight. And also a lot of you are interested in the resources. Fantastic. So our experts and ourselves, we are ready to answer your questions as we progress through the evening tonight. So tonight, I am so excited to be joined by Dr. Annette Govindarajan and Dana Yoerger, who are both from Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. And they will not only be here to answer your burning questions, but will also help us to highlight some of the latest mind-boggling innovation and innovative technologies that are out there to help us explore and the scientific achievements that we've had in ocean exploration. But just before I bring them on the screen, I have one more poll question for you, and this is a fun one. We've got a video to share with you and then a question about that video. And the question associated with this video is, what information do you think the tool that was used to film this deep ocean footage can provide to scientists? So as you're looking at this, what information do you think the tool that was used to film this deep ocean footage can provide to scientists? And the answers are: A, it provides a very quick video scan of some of the organisms that live in the region. B, it tracks the paths organisms take in the water column. C, it documents the behaviors of the organisms that live in the region from video. D, it collects genetic traces or environmental DNA of animals to reveal their identity. Or E, all of the above. So also take a moment to answer that one, and we will come back to that with our experts in just a little while. So as I shared, our two experts tonight are Drs. Annette Govindarajan and Dana Yoerger. And Annette is a biological oceanographer working at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. She has a Bachelor of Science in Biology and a Master's in Biological Oceanography, both from the University of Connecticut, along with a PhD in Biological Oceanography from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution's joint program. And her research interests include animal biodiversity, ecology and evolution, mesopelagic ecology, environmental DNA, and autonomous sampling. And Annette's lab studies the biodiversity and ecology of marine animals, especially the animals of the ocean's midwater. And she and her team use environmental DNA approaches to address questions related to diel vertical migration within the water column, food web interactions, and the biological carbon pump. She also collaborates with engineers to develop autonomous sampling devices and deploys them on platforms like AUVs and ROVs to gather samples to study. And Dana is a senior scientist and researcher in marine robotics, also working at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. He has a Bachelor of Science, a Master's of Science, and a PhD in mechanical engineering, all from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And his research interests are robotics and applying principles of automation to AUVs and ROVs to add capability and ease of their use in exploring the deep sea. And Dana's lab focuses on the design of underwater robotics. He's been a key contributor to the remotely operated vehicle Jason Jr., to the autonomous benthic explorer known as Abe, most recently to the autonomous underwater vehicle Sentry, and the hybrid remotely operated vehicle Nereus, which reached the bottom of the Mariana Trench in 2009. Dana's gone to sea on over 80 oceanographic expeditions, exploring the mid-ocean ridge, mapping underwater seamounts and volcanoes, surveying ancient and modern shipwrecks, and much, much more. So all that said, his current research focuses on robotics for exploring the midwater regions of the world's oceans. So now, if you think about it, you can see why we brought these two experts together tonight. Dana and his team, with collaborators like Annette, recently developed a new underwater robot that you'll hear about very soon. So Annette and Dana, having you with us tonight provides an exceptional opportunity for our audience to learn about current ocean exploration technologies and get their questions answered. So thank you for joining us tonight. Oh, I think we have a sound issue. Let's make sure we've got your...
Got it. I'm good.
There you are.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yep.
Terrific, terrific. Thanks so much, guys. So I'd like to ask everyone participating tonight to start sharing specific questions that you have for our experts based on their incredible backgrounds, and ask as many questions as you have throughout the evening. We will try to cover as many as we can in the next 50 minutes or so. We've got folks behind the scenes monitoring your questions, and we will be hitting them along the way. But while we take a moment for your questions to start rolling in, I've got a couple of questions to get us started. So Annette and Dana, we always love to start off with some questions to get to know our guests a little bit better. So let's start off with a bit of a broad perspective on your work and get to know the two of you a bit. And I'd like to ask if you could each start off by telling us a little bit about how you see yourselves in your ocean exploration role. And Annette, why don't we start with you?
Well, the ocean's a big place, and I'm really interested in learning more about the diversity of animals and how they're distributed through time and space through that vast volume of the ocean, and looking into the factors that drive those distributions. It's, the deep ocean is the largest habitat on the planet, so there's lots to explore.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Dana?
Well, I've always been fascinated by the ocean, and the opportunity to bring my interest there together with my interest in robotics was very compelling to me. And so I really enjoy the idea that we go from understanding which scientific questions are unanswered, where technology could help us, generate those answers, and then figuring out how to build a device. And then, of course, you have to figure out how to get someone to pay for that, okay, which is a huge problem, which is where most ideas die, by the way. Okay, then, and that's a multi-stage thing. You need to prove the concept, and then you get enough money to really build the thing. Then you need the money to take it to sea and prove it out. And then you get to operate it, right? Which is, of course, the big thrill. And that's where we are with our Mesobot, which you'll be hearing about later now. It's still evolving. Our assets are always evolving, but it's that taking it to sea and putting it to work on scientific problems, figuring out where additional opportunities lie, and figure out how to make things better, and then make discoveries with the device. That to me is what really makes me happy.
Which is where the fabulous synergy arrives between the two of you, and the different directions that you come from, right? And how the work that you both do marries together so beautifully.
For sure. And I've gotten to experience this in a couple of different settings. I started off working on robots to understand the seafloor, working with Dr. Robert Ballard. He wasn't interested in the midwater at the time. Oh, there's Bob and I with that was the first robot that we ever had, which we had borrowed from a local company. So Bob challenged us to build these robots and make them work. And so it was bringing those scientific problems and the technology together that was so exciting. And of course, actually, first time you take something like that to sea, you learn so much. Oh, we should have done this. Oh, what about this opportunity? Oh, that, whose idea was that? That whole process is extremely exciting to be part of.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. In getting to know the two of you just a little bit better, thinking about, our own careers and what captivates us to get into the line of work that we're in. Do either of you have a young person story or an aha moment? Annette, maybe you have one?
Well, I think I've always been really just fascinated by the diversity of animals and what generates that diversity. And I started off with my PhD research with a group of animals called hydrozoans, or type of jellyfish that a lot of them have these complex life cycles with different stages. And it was just fascinating to me how the different forms could have evolved. And so I learned molecular approaches so I could study their evolutionary relationships. And I spent a lot of time collecting the specimens so that I could get their DNA. And, I really enjoyed that. Actually, I enjoy traveling and field work. But since that time, the technology has advanced really rapidly. And now I use environmental DNA, or eDNA, which is more like a forensic style approach, where I can actually detect the presence of animals without actually having to collect the specimens themselves. And it's really exciting to me to be on the forefront of new technologies and using these cutting edge tools to study the science.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And we'll talk a little bit more in depth about those tools and that science in just a few moments. And Dana, you mentioned some of your history in underwater robotics with some of the famous folks in our field. Was there an aha moment for you somewhere in there in your childhood or your young adult life?
Well, I think one of them, I was a postdoc at MIT. The same advisor I had for my PhD, Dr. Thomas Sheridan. And he called me up and he said, I have a visitor coming in tomorrow. I hear he's a little bit crazy, but I think you might like to meet him. Okay, well, that was Dr. Robert Ballard. And I recall sitting on the couch in my advisor's office as Ballard showed us, I think it was a 35 millimeter slideshow about the underwater robots that he wanted to build to explore the ocean. And I looked up at the clock. I think it was 15 minutes into his talk. And I was looking for a job at the time. And I thought, hey, I think this is what I want to do. And by the end of that day, at a standard kind of Bob Ballard pace, we drove all the way down to Woods Hole. We visited a company. We visited his lab at Woods Hole. And we basically shaken hands on the deal that, I was going to join his group. And that was 1982. Good thing I didn't sleep in that day, huh? But literally, it wasn't truly a random encounter because Ballard had wanted to start an underwater robotics group at Woods Hole, and the ONR, actually the Office of Naval Research, was already funding us, the group I was in at MIT, and so they directed Ballard to come up and talk to us. For those of you who know Bob, his idea of a joint research program is he goes to the other place and finds out who he wants and he hires them. And so, that's how I ended up at Woods Hole. And our technology at the time, Alvin, of course, had existed for many years and had been very successful. Most of the other tools that we used were pretty simplistic by today's standards. I don't mean that sort of in a pejorative way. People worked with what the technology that they had. We towed cameras on the end of a steel cable and developed the film and looked at the pictures, that kind of stuff. Okay. And so the whole revolution that's happened over the last 40 years, conducting cables, fiber optic cables, remotely operated vehicles, all the evolution of cameras and computers and all of that, I got to have a front row seat for all of that. So it was great. And of course, the science that was evolving at the same time was undergoing a similar revolution. Right. Discovery of hydrothermal vents that had happened just before I joined the group. But we found out they were pervasive all over the world, and our technology supported a lot of cutting edge science in terms of understanding how those systems worked. We helped scientists take samples. We mapped those areas. We discovered a lot of them using robots. Okay, that were kind of a fanciful idea in somebody's imagination when I first joined Ballard's group.
So you've really lived a lifetime of evolution of technology. It's not just the things that we're familiar with on shore, from telephones to light switches. It's what's gone on under the sea as well. And if you were to just sort of catalog all that, it would be mind blowing.
Yes, and I need to add that there is always a big social component to all of these evolutions. When we first proposed to build autonomous robots to explore the seafloor, a lot of people just rolled their eyes and said, that's crazy. That's engineers, fulfilling their fantasies to no scientific good. So we had to overcome that skepticism, which we did. with a small group of scientists, and I should say program managers at the funding agencies, who believed in our vision and enabled us to put those pieces together. But each one of the robots that I've developed, I've been part of a team that developed. It really takes about 10 years from that idea of, hey, we could build a robot to whatever, to actually get it out in the field and be doing obtaining results that are worthy of publication in a peer-reviewed journal, right? Which is the gold standard for us.
Fantastic. I'm going to ask each of you to very, very briefly share a bit about the current tools that you're working with, what their purpose is and how they're offering some advancement in ocean exploration, just keeping in mind that we really want to get to audience questions within the next 8 minutes or so. And Dana, maybe you can start with setting us up with the answer to the poll question about the video that we watched, and tell us what that tool was.
Sure. That data is hot off the presses. That was from mid-October. We were out on the Ocean Exploration Trust ship Nautilus, and that came from our Mesobot robot, which is a system that Annette and I have been working on now, again, for close to a decade. And you're seeing Mesobot, it's driving by itself, although it is supervised by our team up on the surface. And in fact, even some members of our team, including Annette, who were ashore at the time. So there's Mesobot going over the side. It weighs about a little short of 600 pounds. It can dive down to 1,000 meters. It can drive very slowly in very controlled fashion. It can hover with tremendous accuracy. You'll notice a lot of the video that you'll see from Mesobot, it looks like the vehicle is actually perfectly still, okay? And that's pretty close to being true. And also, Mesobot doesn't disturb the water around it, which is very important. So it can move very slowly and very precisely. It carries lights, as you see. It carries several video cameras, and it carries a whole bunch of other instruments, including an instrument that can measure the exceedingly low light levels that are associated with where the animals live. These are light levels that are many factors of 10 dimmer than what your eyes can see. Okay, as a just to give you a reference, when Mesobot comes to the surface under a full moon, that sensor is completely overloaded. That's way too much light for it. And of course, we also carry the eDNA sampler. And so I think Annette should talk about that.
Yeah. So if I can just share with folks the actual answer to that question, the Mesobot provides a very quick video scan of some of the organisms in the region. It tracks the paths of organisms. It documents the behavior of organisms that live in the region by video. And as Dana mentioned, it does collect eDNA of the animals in the area to reveal their identities. So the answer to that was all of the above, which a lot of you got correct. So fantastic. And Mesobot is just an amazing new efficient tool for exploring the ocean. So Annette, you want to tell us a bit more about how you use it?
Sure. Yeah. So like Dana said, I was part of the process on conceiving Mesobot, and actually pushed for the inclusion of samplers when we were first creating the what it was going to be all about. Like, we need to take samples, I said, and prior to Mesobot, I had worked with samplers that could collect zooplankton to do genetic analyses, but around the time when we were, doing this, the application of the eDNA, right, to study animals was really gaining traction, and I was really eager to combine that with Mesobot. So we would have these two new tools working together, and I was especially excited to apply these approaches to the deep sea, specifically in the ocean twilight zone. These animals in the ocean twilight zone, or the OTZ, they're really important in terms of transporting carbon from shallower waters down to the deep see through their feeding and migratory habitats. But we really need to study it better. And in particular, sampling is really important. So we had this vision of Mesabot being able to do all of the things that Dana said, and in addition to collecting samples and doing these genetic analyses.
Yeah. And you should mention how many samples Mesabot can take on a single dive.
Yeah, so we've taken, so that you're seeing a picture of an earlier version of the sampler. We can do, they're modular units, so we can do 16, but then we can put together multiple units. So Mesabot can carry up to 3 of these, so that's 48, although the most we've taken is 32 at a given time. And so that's actually a lot of samples, more than we can usually get with other types of methods.
Mm-hmm. Okay, terrific. Well, I think you guys have done a nice job of setting the stage of the background of the technologies that you work with, and I think we have a few questions that we'd love to toss your way to get our audience engaged in our conversation. Can I ask our team to toss something forward? Great. Can you share with us the difference about designing a robot for the midwater compared to designing one that would spend more of its time on the sea floor? Is there a difference?
I guess that one's for me, since I've been doing both of those things. I think the basic scientific measurements are fundamentally different. Robots, autonomous robots for exploring the seafloor, generally used, the first thing that they do is they map the seafloor. So we build these very high resolution maps using sonar, but we also use cameras. And so the first job for an autonomous robot on the seafloor is to fly perhaps between 20 and 50 meters off the seafloor. So about maybe 60 to 150 feet above the seafloor, follow the seafloor, and run these sophisticated sonars that literally sweep out a map. Like you saw earlier, were made from the ship, except the robot makes them very close to the seafloor so they can be very high resolution. They're much better than 1 meter kind of resolution for mapping the detailed shape of the seafloor. And so for a geologist, or for most people who are interested in exploring the seafloor, that's sort of the first thing they want to know. What's the topography? Okay, just like you would on land. If you're going into some terrain you want to study, the first thing you do is you pull out your map and you see where the mountains and the valleys and understand the terrain. So and that doesn't have a strict analog in the midwater, right? That the idea of just sort of mapping out the shape of the seafloor. I'm not sure what the analog is in the midwater. The midwater is more like you want to characterize, maybe more on a statistical basis, who's there, what's there, and understand so that the scientists can figure out the biodiversity and that sort of thing. Of course, the seafloor is reasonably static. The midwater is changing all the time. It changes on a daily basis. It changes literally on an hourly basis as the animals respond to the daily cycle of light. Again, Annette can elaborate more on that. That's one of the reasons why, for example, we measure different things. We measure the light levels are critical for a midwater robot. It doesn't make any sense for a deep seafloor robot because there's no light there. So we measure different things. We do it over different scales, different distances, different speeds. So the midwater robot is a much more of a finely controlled, at least our version of it, which is the Mesabot. There are other people who have other ideas about what the best thing to do is. But so we're interested in a robot that's very able to maneuver on a very fine scale, completely away from the seafloor, and make different kind of observations. For example, different kinds of cameras for imaging the animals up close, for actually following them, which is one of the things that we have done with the Mesobot and taking those eDNA samples. I think the people who work near the seafloor would, and Annette can tell you that she's beginning to do that work near the seafloor as well. So kind of carrying that process full circle. So okay, and I'll give you one more really important difference. A robot for exploring the seafloor needs to know where it is on the face of the earth all the time. No geologist is interested in a beautiful image if you can't tell them where it came from. Right. Okay, precisely, like within a meter on the globe. The midwater is a much different environment for that. It's you're more concerned with where are you relative to certain layers that you have identified acoustically, for example, or how far away I am from that animal. So you don't have that kind of challenge of knowing where you are in the world. You want to know where you are relative to important water column features, which are in fact extremely dynamic. So that's a much different problem, and one that I very much enjoyed working on.
So these robots need to be a bit more nimble, even though they're precise in what it is that they do. So Annette, I know you're thinking about collecting samples, and you're thinking about currents, and you're thinking about vertical migration. We do have a question about the sampling. Sure. Actually, we have a couple of questions about the sampling, but this one is once the samples are collected by the hybrid vehicle, I think, not so much an ROV anymore, right? How are they handled and processed, and what happens on board, and where do they go?
So when we use the samplers that are on Mesobot, they actually do the filtration in situ. So basically we load up the sampler with filters before Mesobot is deployed, and then we take our samples and it does all the filtering where we tell it to, and then it comes back up onto the ship, and we just really remove the filters from the sampler and we put them in the freezer. So it's pretty simple. The traditional way, though, of getting eDNA samples, which actually was part of our motivation for doing these samples with the in situ filtration, is that you have to bring the water up in these bottles called Niskin bottles, and then you do the filtration on the ship, right? And so you have to bring the pumps with you. You have to be really careful that everything's really clean and that you don't have contamination. And it's very labor intensive. So one of the, these were really motivations for us to develop the autonomous samplers that can do this filtration in situ. It saves a lot of work. It reduces pathways for contamination, and it allows us to get our samples, very precisely. And it's a very straightforward process.
Wow, it's just like the amount of efficiency that's built into this machine is amazing.
That's exactly right. I think, very early on when I started with the eDNA, with the classic Niskin bottles that were mounted on the CTD rosette, I realized like this is a lot of work, right? You're also very limited with the amount of water you can sample, right? Because you can only sample what you can fit in the bottles, right? And so so you're looking at it's called the CTD rosette, and those are Niskin bottles, and you can take a few liters of water, right? But that's it, because that's all that fits in the bottles. But with pumps that can filter in situ, you can take much larger volumes. And what we have found is that that's important for the deep ocean, because it's a big place, right? And so it gives us a lot more flexibility with sampling.
So you've really seen kind of an evolution in DNA study in general, haven't you?
Yes. So that's true, and that's we've seen the evolution on the lab side in terms of the development of the sequencing technologies that have allowed us to go from back in the day when I did my thesis, when we'd have specimens where we would get the individual sequences from individual specimens, to now we do our high throughput sequencing, where we can get bulk samples, and that could be, contents of a whole zooplankton tow, or it could be these water samples where we can get the sequences from the entire community, right? And we can get 100,000 sequences in a given sample. But we've also seen the evolution and development on the sampling side of things as well, right? In terms of the platforms and the autonomous samplers.
Mm-hmm. So just for a little more detail there, Annette, people who aren't necessarily familiar with the eDNA sampling, one of the questions we have is how many different species can you detect when you're collecting one of these samples?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it depends, right? And so when we do the sequencing, we use what's called a barcode marker. Now, a DNA barcode is a stretch of DNA sequence that for individuals within a species, it's similar or identical, right? But for individuals between species, from different species, it's going to be much different, right? And so when we, in the sequencing process, we have to do something called PCR, which is making lots of copies of our barcode marker, so we have enough for sequencing. And our barcode or choice of marker, right, is really targeted towards different groups of organisms. So I could use, sometimes I'll use a marker that can target a wide range of organisms. I might not be able to identify them all to the species level, right? But I can get a wide range of higher level classifications. And then other markers can be more species specific. And I might say, okay, I want to target fish, right? So I use a marker that targets fish. So I think you have to have the science question in mind when you choose your approach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when you're thinking about that, and then if we switch gears back to the robots themselves, Dana, if we're thinking about something like studying diel migration, right, the north and south, the vertical migration of organisms based on light, and Annette's looking for specific samples, sort of, right, in this great big mid ocean area. I think, Dana, you had some recent expedition experience where you were working with robots that were talking to one another.
Yes.
And I think, that evolution relates directly back to what Annette is trying to accomplish with the eDNA. Can you tell us a little more about that experience?
Yes. We operate Mesobot in a collaborative way, actually from the research vessel, and also from an autonomous surface vessel called DRIX, which is run by our University of New Hampshire colleagues, who we just had a great experience with them in the last 3 weeks. So DRIX is kind of like a mini parent ship supervising Mesobot. So the ship can be, actually at one point we were 30 miles away with the ship, but DRIX was driving literally in circles above Mesobot, okay? And so it was telling us back on the ship exactly where Mesobot was, and also giving us a communication pathway, which is important. So we could basically send text messages back and forth from the ship to DRIX and to Mesobot, two-way. And at the same time, DRIX is also carrying some sonar devices that actually illuminate for us what we call layers, which are, if you've ever seen a fish finder, okay, imagine the world's most exotic, and I should add expensive, fish finder, okay? That's what our ships and DRIX carry. So that allows us to see where there are, at least according to the acoustics, concentrations of animals or some physical process. Of course, acoustics doesn't necessarily tell you what it is. There you go. That's a whole day's worth of acoustics data. So, for example, we might. So actually, in that image, time is running across the bottom of the image. So that's a whole day's worth of data. And So those layers were down deep during the day when the light is bright. And then the animals rise up at night, and then they descend at dawn. So we can use that sonar information to direct Mesobot to go to specific places, to take samples, to make all of the other measurements too, for example. So we turn the lights off and we measure the light level. And then we turn on the cameras and lights. We look around after we take the sample. We're concerned that we don't want to disturb the environment before we sample it. So typically we'll pick a target depth based on what the sonar is telling us, or in some cases, Annette and her collaborators back at Woods Hole told us to, directed us to, and Mesobot would go there, take a sample, and then measure the light level and turn the lights on and look around. So these are very different ways of kind of exploring that we're able to do in a uniform way. Is very, very exciting for us.
It is exciting. It's really quite mind-blowing. And Annette, I know you had your own experience there with this expedition from a very different angle. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I was participating from shore from the lab at Hui, and that was and this is part of the really cool aspect of this, that I was actually even able to do this, right? And so, I think Dana explained it really well. We're trying to target our sampling, right? Because we want to find these interesting layers, and we want to, it's kind of complementary. We want to have the eDNA help us identify what the acoustic signal is giving us, and we also want the acoustics to tell us where the interesting parts are, right? And we can see over the course of the day, at dawn and at dusk, we can see many of these layers. Not every animal migrates, right? But we can see some of these layers moving up and down in that migration. And so I was able to participate from shore, and I could see what what the screens that Dana and the rest of the team were seeing on the ship, right? And so we had Drix circling around Mesobot, and we also were able to see the acoustic signal. And so I was able to say, okay, I think this is a layer we want to go to, and then we were able to communicate that, and then have Mesobot go to that layer and take the samples, and then move on to its next mission. So it was really cool.
And I should point out why you see that sort of spiral, springy looking thing. The Drix, that's the trail of the Drix in the red, and the yellow object is Mesobot, and you see the Mesobot's path. The red is Drix's path. Drix actually can't stop. Okay, it's like a boat that if it's not moving forward, it can't control its steering anymore. So it needs to keep moving. And so the way that it stays with Mesobot is it keeps Mesobot's position at the center of a circle, and it drives around in a circle. And then as Mesobot either drifts or drives, that circle turns into a kind of coily cord shape. I'll tell you, the Drix is a fantastic tool. And it's actually was connected through Starlink this time. Okay. And, that technology, there you see it's driving its circle around Mesobot. That technology is amazing. The connectivity to Drix is as good as the internet connection I have in my office at Woods Hole to anywhere in the world. So when you're interacting through the computers on Drix to Mesobot, there's almost no difference between being controlling Mesobot from the ship or controlling Mesobot through Drix. It all feels exactly the same, which is tremendous. So the ship can go off and do other things.
It's just amazing, Dana. Can you just very briefly elaborate on Starlink? There may be some folks in the audience who don't know what that is.
Starlink is the latest sort of internet anywhere system. It's operationally, the antenna is about the size of a cutting board, okay, in your kitchen. and it's mounted on top of actually on the stern of Drix, looking up at the satellites, and so it provides very high, an excellent internet connection, better than the internet connection I'm using right now in my house. Okay, and Drix could be anywhere in the world, and it's also very low latency, which means latency is a fancy word for delay. Okay, and so it has very low latency, and that means that's all part of making your remote connection very transparent. Like you feel like you're fully connected because there's no time delay. So it's a great technology. There are other commercial systems competitors, by the way, and for us it's great as that marketplace grows and gets more competitive. There's systems like Iridium. So I don't mean to endorse a brand, but it certainly worked extremely well for us.
So Dana, we do have a question about these robots, and I mean we've been talking a lot about the mid-water column and various areas that we've been exploring. We've had a specific question about whether or not these robots can be used to locate mesophotic coral reefs.
Actually, Mesobot wouldn't be my first choice for that. For the simple reason, Mesobot doesn't really know where the bottom is. Okay, it truly is a midwater asset. Now we could add that. I worked with seafloor mapping robots for many years, and so those vehicles are all about knowing where you are, how high you are off the bottom, and dealing with the occasional time when that system goes a little awry and the robot ends up colliding with the seafloor. Fortunately, those instances were rare, but they always did happen. But Mesobot doesn't go near the bottom. I should say one of my colleagues at Woods Hole, Yogi, as he goes by, has a very active program in exploring coral reefs with autonomous robots, and so you can check out his website. He calls his group the WARP Lab, WARP LAB. So and they collaborate with a number of biologists at Hui and other places to study explore coral reefs. So it's very exciting and very challenging work, I should say.
Terrific. Thanks for that, Dana. I'm going to switch back to eDNA just a little bit, Annette. We've got a question here from Francisco. He's wondering how much water you need to get a successful eDNA sample. You're out there in the midwater column. Do you need an ounce? Do you need a lot?
Well, you can get eDNA from smaller volumes. I think I get a typical, like if you're using the Niskin bottle, you might get 2 liters or something. But we find that the more you sample, the more you're going to find. So especially once you get down below the surface waters, once you get into the deep sea, we find that the eDNA is more dilute. So sampling larger volumes, and with Mesobot, we typically sample like 40 liters or so for a given sample. And so that's compared to maybe 2 to 5 liters with a Niskin bottle. But I mean, you can get eDNA from the smaller bottles, but you'll find more if you sample more.
Mm-hmm. That leads me to another question, Annette. We were talking with Tim Schenk from your facility, from Woods Hole, on Tuesday, and he spends a lot of time focusing on deep sea, the Hadal zone. Right. And would you expect that your samples would be much more sparse there than in other places?
Yeah, so we find, I think we see typically in pretty much every cruise we've gone, we see the eDNA yields that we get from our samples really declining below 100 meters. And then once you get even below the mesopelagic, all the way down to the Hadal, I'm sure that the concentrations are very, very low. Once you get to the seafloor, you might have some impact of that bottom, but I think in the water column, it's going to be very low. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this is where I think we can have, these samplers that can do the filtration in situ and accommodate larger volumes can be very helpful for ocean exploration.
Gosh, speaking of which, so you just think about that and you think about where we're going next. What's next? Annette, what intrigues you about the future of ocean technology? What do you think it's going to look like 5 or 10 years from now?
I think we're going to, I hope at least that we're going to be scaling this up so that we can do, again, because it's such, the ocean is such a big place, right? It's such a massive volume, and we need to do this more often, right, at a larger scale, and take more samples, and I have a feeling when we do that, we're going to discover a lot of new things, a lot of new species, a lot of better understanding of the ecological interactions, and a lot of relationships with the environment that we don't know because we're limited right now by sampling.
Right. And we've got a planet that's, 72% ocean, and the water column makes up the largest part of our planet, right?
Right. So I think, like, I see that, scaling up as being really important. And I have a feeling that when we do that, we're going to discover a lot of really exciting things.
Awesome. Dana, how about you? Same question. What's most intriguing to you about what it might look like 5 to 10 years from now?
Well, I think that we need to make our robots pervasive. Okay, we need to make them inexpensive. If you ask me to build a cell phone, okay, it would probably cost $1 million. Okay, if you can make 1 million cell phones, they cost hundreds of dollars. Okay, we're never going to kind of be at that level, but by making our systems much more affordable and sort of mass producible, we will be able to deploy them on a much broader scale. And if imagine they had something like the Starlink that we talked about, and the antenna can be submerged, which the current one can't. Okay, it could be out there exploring, and it could pop up, and it could send us all that video data back. Okay, and if we had, thousands of those robots around, we would have a wonderful kind of raucous meeting with all of our colleagues, figuring out, how to deploy them, what the schedule would be, and what areas are more important than others. But because of course there would never be enough of them. But you look at a program like Argo. If people are familiar with that. These are these profiling floats. We have about 4,000 of them out there. Okay, they basically make water column profiles of temperature, salinity, and other critical items like that. There's thousands of them out there. Okay, they're pretty inexpensive, and they're easily deployed. Literally, the way they're deployed is they come in a box, cardboard box, and they throw the cardboard box over the side. That's how you launch an Argo float. Okay, so they can give it to a ship of opportunity. They can give it to a commercial vessel and say, when you get to this latitude and longitude, throw it over the side. Okay, and they do, and the cardboard does the right thing, and the robot's off, and it ends up exploring for like 4 years. It's sending its data back every 2 weeks. We're looking at much more complex data sets than what an Argo float can do, but that's the model. Okay, and if you can achieve that, you can put thousands of them out there. Okay, and you can operate them. The other reason that Argo is a model is that all of that data is kind of quality controlled and then published on the internet in a very accessible way. So people from all over the world can access that. And I would say there are people who write great papers with that data who have no idea what those systems actually are. They don't need to. They know what the data is, and the data is very clear what it is. So we would like to, as a technologist, you want to strip away all the complexity and bring it to people so they can use it and analyze it. Like, so for example, people who didn't know anything about how Mesobot worked, but were experts in analyzing the video. If we could make, thousands and thousands of hours of that available. Of course, then they'd need to train their computers to analyze that automatically, which is another fabulous opportunity that a whole bunch of people in our community are working on.
Yeah, so we had a conversation with Kakani Khatija.
Yes, they're doing great work in that, and that's obviously at the cutting edge because one of our colleagues at Woods Hole, Heidi Sosik, has been doing that with her, basically a very specific kind of in situ microscope, essentially that looks at phytoplankton, and that's been operating at one place for I think almost a decade. And that data would be useless if it couldn't be analyzed automatically. So those technologies are just really critical. And so that's the kind of general notion of the future that I see. There's a lot of obstacles to doing that. But that's what we're here for, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. To solve those obstacles, right?
Yeah.
Overcome those obstacles. Dana, Rick has asked us where Mesobot will be going next. He was pretty amazed by that video that you all took a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. The next cruise that we have on the books is to American Samoa. Okay. And that will also be, with the Mesobot and with the NETS group, and also with our colleagues from UNH again aboard the Nautilus, which is run by our friends at the Ocean Exploration Trust. Yep. We had a great time at sea with them this year. It was excellent. The folks who run the ship, all of the people that are involved in public engagement, and the folks who work on deck, just great. And the folks who cook dinner for you, everyone. You come off of that ship and you feel like you had 3 weeks in your life that you're not going to forget.
Oh, that's tremendous. And when we get to the resources section of our evening, Liz will be sharing some access to the information that was collected from those expeditions.
I'd like to say one thing. Annette was a remote participant, and she and I, we haven't even discussed this yet. But there's one important dynamic that's really important. When you're on the ship, okay, you're either sleeping, eating, maybe going for a short workout, or you're available to work all the time. When we're interacting with our colleagues ashore, they're like, well, I'm available at this time and that time. We go, what do you mean? Are you asleep? Are you, so there's this kind of social dissonance that happens between people who are at the ship and people who are ashore. The people who are on the vessel, we're all, we're 24/7, okay, except when we're sleeping and maybe taking a little time for ourselves every day to get on the treadmill or something. Interacting with people on the beach, even if they're completely committed to our project, the outside demands on their time don't stop. Okay.
Different.
So all of a sudden and then of course we're in Hawaii, so we're 6 hours from Woods Hole. So it was actually becomes just a mundane everyday scheduling problem to make some of those things work. So
I'll add that I'm going to be on that boat in American Samoa.
Okay, great. So we'll know right where to find you. But that's part of what Ballard's whole vision of telepresence has allowed us to explore all those things, and that's all reality, right? But there you go. That's how it works. Except everyone who's on the vessel, man, they're ours, right? People ashore, the rest of their life doesn't stop. So that's an important social dynamic that we need to be respectful of. So
absolutely,
it's great to come to these revelations,
Yeah. And Annette, get ready.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you're going to be able to get on the ship for American Samoa. That'll be fantastic. I'm gonna ask a question just to wrap up our time with you guys and get us over to our resources not too long from now. But Annette, I'm going to start with you. When you think about the young people that you interact with and the young people that are coming into these types of professions, that are interested in technology, that are interested in biology, that are interested in science, what advice would you give to them as they progress in their pursuits?
I would say, work hard, don't give up, right? Persevere, and don't be afraid to follow your curiosity and to push yourself to try new things, right? And so, that's how you make the breakthroughs is by trying new things. So, yeah.
Super good advice. Super good advice. And Dana, 2 quick sentences on what you would say to young people.
Technical fields, engineering are fantastic routes to an at sea adventurous life. Okay, and I'm proof of that. I didn't study oceanography as a student. I've kind of learned it by doing. And this is Eric Hayden, by the way, who was actually the person running the Mesobot on this expedition. There's me back in the previous time. I looked for the tie. I couldn't find it. And I looked for the hair too, but I couldn't find that either. But in any case, the technical jobs, people who can do software, who can do electronics, who can do mechanical work, who can build things. Tremendous opportunity at a place like Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, and all our partner institutions as well. University of New Hampshire, University of Rhode Island, all the institutions that we interact with. Tremendous opportunities for motivated, skilled engineering people to build stuff and take it to sea and make it work.
Terrific. Thank you, Dana. Thank you both so much for that terrific advice. And a lot of the resources that are available from both of the work from both of you are in the resource list that Liz will be sharing in just a few moments, including some papers from Annette and from Dana that are in a couple of research journals and public journals. And I would just spin off on that advice to our educators is reading, and get your students reading at very young ages. And there is a wonderful book that Woods Hole put out not too long ago called Where the Weird Things Are. And maybe either of you want to say a couple of words about where the weird things are?
Want me to go first?
Sure.
Well, when we came up with the idea of the Mesobot, it certainly was no stretch that Mesobot would be a great way to bring exploration of the ocean to the public. I think the great surprise in this book, if you read it, which I highly recommend, is that we have a sort of other threads to our engagement push, which is about the weirdness of the ocean and how wonderful that is. And in the book, that translates to Mesobot, who's a character, coming to grips with his own differences, and that he's not like all the other creatures that he encounters, and so he comes to accept and celebrate his uniqueness. And I never would have imagined that the robot that we decided to build would end up being a vehicle for that kind of message. So, and by the way, I just love the art in that book.
It's a beautiful book.
And when Mesobot actually, you saw that picture there where Mesobot had an encounter with a swordfish on the last cruise. I stumbled out of bed, and Eric had reviewed our video, and he said, Eric, who you saw earlier, he said, "You're never going to guess what Mesobot saw last night." I said, "What?" He said, "A swordfish." So I actually sent the clip to the artist who made that painting.
That's
and
great.
She was thrilled.
That's really great.
So That was longer than you thought, but I
That's okay. Annette, anything you would add to that?
No, well, it's the animals down in the twilight zone, they're just fascinating. They look really different than the kinds of species of that we're used to, right? And yeah, it's beautiful to see what they look like.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And I just love how children's books can bring to life the incredible work that people like you all do and make that technology accessible to all ages. So we are absolutely so grateful for the time that the two of you have spent with us. It's really some powerful information about the future and where we're going in ocean exploration. And I know folks are really looking forward to diving in a little bit deeper with some of the resources that we have available. So again, thank you both so much. I'm going to ask our audience now if you would take part in one more quick interactive before we move into the resources. We have a QR code for a word cloud, and we'd love for you to share a couple of words that describe what intrigued you most so far about this evening's event. So you can drop in 1 word, 2 words, 3 words as we progress into our resources. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Liz to share some of those resources to help bring this wonderful information alive in the classroom. Liz?
Hey everyone, I don't know about you, but I certainly learned a lot from our experts tonight. We're so grateful they're able to join us and answer so many of your questions. However, we recognize that this is only a 90-minute event, and there's just no way to possibly cover all of the incredible things that there is to learn about ocean exploration technology. And so our team has curated a list of resources for you. You should have received it in your email, reminding you about tonight's event and with the link to join. If you didn't, don't worry, you'll be getting that in a follow-up email as well. So it's coming your way. And I just want to walk through and highlight a couple of the great things that are there. But if it doesn't tell you anything about this evening and this topic in particular, usually when we do these events, our resource sheets are 1, maybe 2 pages. But for this topic, we've got 4 pages of resources to share with you. So I'll keep this short because there's so much more that you can dive into on your own time. So starting at the top of the resource sheet, the videos that were mentioned throughout tonight's event, and some of those previews were shown, especially when we were looking at Mesobot, are featured right at the top of that list. These videos are hot off the press. A lot of them are coming from the most recent expedition out with Nautilus and Ocean Exploration Trust. So definitely check out those videos, share them with your students. There's some really great content in there. Scrolling through that list, I know Susan hit right at the end there. We also have some publications from our experts that joined us tonight. So for those of you joining with older students or just looking to learn a lot more about the topic, maybe at more of an academic level, be sure to check those out as well. And then I'm so glad that the children's book was shared. It's one of my favorite resources. It's a really cool tool to bring this topic alive, and it's just so accessible. But a couple of my favorite web and digital resources that are also included in this list, one I really wanted to highlight, also provided by Hui, is the Dive and Discover. These are a collection of interactives, educational interactives on a variety of topics, but they do have one on underwater research vehicles that I know our team has used a lot to learn about this topic. If you are joining and you've got students of any age, I definitely encourage you to check out the Dive and Discover. The link to the underwater robots one is provided in that resource sheet. And there's a couple different interactives on this topic. Another really fun one, if you are looking to try your own hand at ocean exploration technology, we did this program at an earlier time for some of our folks joining on the East Coast, trying to not make it so late for everybody. We know we've got a lot of you joining from the East Coast tonight, and I appreciate you sticking with us. But a really cool opportunity for you to test out ocean technology and help advance it and be a part of a beta test is to join the Fathomverse game. So on your resource sheet, there is a QR code that will take you to the homepage for this website. And from there, you can actually get straight to the Fathomverse game. But this is a really cool opportunity. One of the things that's mentioned, a challenge in ocean exploration, is the advancements in technology have allowed us to collect data at a volume that's just uncomparable to any earlier time. And one of those challenges that comes out of that is processing said data, especially for video data. Our office often uses the comparison of for every hour of video footage in the deep sea, it takes at least 4 hours to annotate that, to identify the animals that we're seeing down to the species level, the geological features, and more. And so really taking advantage, and a new technology that's really taking off is using AI or artificial intelligence or to go ahead and help us automate this process and accelerate that data analysis. And one of the tools or the groups that are working on that includes a scientist at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, Kakani. She joined us in Tuesday's event, as well as several colleagues from different institutions around the US. But they are piloting a game where you can help them train their computer model. And so again, follow that QR code on your resource sheet and then put in a little bit of your information, and you can help test your ability to identify deep sea creatures. And in the process, provide them some really great informative feedback for the beta test of their game, which they're hoping to launch live later next spring. This event was brought to you by NOAA Ocean Exploration. So of course, I want to walk through some of the resources available on our website. The NOAA Ocean Exploration website is Oceanexplore.NOAA.gov. On our homepage, you can reach all kinds of information. It really depends what you're looking for. So I'll highlight just a couple features. For those of you joining from an education audience, whether you're a classroom teacher, student, or a parent looking for more, we do have an education tab where we keep everything. You can explore by topic, or if you hit view all, that is our version of a homepage. We have a lot of great educational content organized by ocean exploration theme, including underwater robots. Within each of these theme pages, you can find lessons, fact sheets, multimedia galleries, past expeditions on that topic, and more. So plenty to dive into here. If you keep scrolling, we have some of our older collections of resources as well. If you've attended one of our in-person professional development workshops in the past and are looking for the great lessons that you saw there, be sure to check out those collections. And we will bring back our in-person professional developments next spring, and those will be advertised under our professional development opportunities tab. So stay tuned. You should be familiar with this page because I think most of you probably were sent here in order to register for tonight's event. But if you scroll down beyond the deep dives where you registered, we've got our professional development workshops highlighted. And so we will be adding updates about our spring events, likely right after the start of the new year. So check back for that shortly, or follow us on Facebook, or sign up for our newsletter to stay in tune with those updates. If you are not in the education audience and you are just looking for more on ocean technologies or ocean exploration technologies, a couple other resources that are really great fall under our science and technology tab. In here, we've got an exploration tools, and these are really great overviews of various technologies and vessels and sampling devices that are used commonly in our expeditions. Really great photos and videos from past expeditions that go along with that content. This is a really great way if you're looking to just get your feet wet and understand the variety of things that exist and make ocean exploration possible. Definitely check out those exploration tools. And then lastly on this page, I know we had a couple questions in the comment about accessing data. So as a government office or a federal office, NOAA as a whole provides all of its data. It makes it available to the public after the fact. There's a slight delay. We don't post it instantaneously with an expedition, but it does all make its way to our website eventually. If you head to our data and products tab, you can go straight to data access. And it's the best way to reach any of the data that you're looking for. I know mapping was specifically asked for tonight, and there's a couple of ways to find and explore that data. Our data atlas is a really great way to explore by region. So if you were looking to bring data to your students and connect it to where you are located, this is a really awesome tool that allows you to hone in on past expeditions from our office and others. And you can be sent to that expeditions page and view all of the data types that were collected from that expedition. Going back to that data access page, another great tool is our ArcGIS online group. Again, if you're looking for mapping or geospatial data, definitely check that out. It's really user-friendly. And then I will say one of my favorite on this page is our data landing page. So this is a great way to explore by year, so you can check out recent expeditions. Again, there's a slight delay, so the most recent ones on here are 2002 expeditions. But you can also see where each of those were. So if you're looking, again, for that regional connection, and once you pick or select an expedition, all of the data types are available for download, and it tells you a little bit about what that file type is as well. And then the last resource I want to highlight tonight is the Deep Ocean Education Project. So something that was mentioned a lot tonight is about how advancing technology makes things more accessible to everybody. And that really matters for us when it comes to ocean exploration education too. So the Deep Ocean Education Project website is a unique collaboration between our office, Ocean Exploration Trust, and Schmidt Ocean Institute. And it's designed to act as a one-stop shop for the best ocean exploration education resources around. So again, instead of browsing 3 separate websites, if you're looking for an educational material like a fact sheet, a lesson, a video, or more, check this website out. It's got a really easy search feature right at the start. Once you start typing, like if I type ROV, it starts to pre-populate a list with all of the ROV resources on the site. If you would like to browse and see everything that's available, head on over to the Explore page. Should look kind of familiar because it's also organized by topic. In this case, we've broadened it to marine technology, so we have everything from vessels to submersibles and more under that tab. And if you want to hone in on something specific or a specific type of resource to add to your current curriculum, keep scrolling and the advanced search bar will help you sort. If I put in marine technology, I can sort by resource type, or organization. And if you are looking for a student activity and select that, some additional filters pop up so you can really search by grade level and next generation science standard. There's also a ship tracker on the site for the 3 ships. One of my favorite features on here is you can see who is live streaming at that moment. So for all 3 organizations, when they have robots in the water, they are bringing that content to you live via live feed, and you can check that out here for all 3 ships. And you can plan ahead by checking out the tri-ship calendar at the bottom. So we don't have next year's cruises on yet, but those will be going up shortly. Nautilus and Falcor are both wrapping up their ROV cruises and mapping cruises this winter, and we are currently at sea for a mapping expedition as well. And then the last thing I want to highlight on this is the My Account feature. So one of the reasons we wanted to create this site and really lean in on the accessibility, if any of you are like me, you've probably searched for something and then gone to look for it again less than a day later and can't find it because the internet is just full of so many resources. So on the Deep Ocean Education Project website, you can create a free account. And what that allows you to do is save any of those resources that you like on the site, whether it's a lesson, a video, an image gallery, or fact sheet, into a collection that you design. So these are all collections that I've built for various activities. And we've got, I think my Zoom is off because I just created one for tonight's event. There it is. For Deep Dives Ocean Exploration Technologies, you can see I've been able to save lessons and activities on the topic, background information, videos, and more. Can add my own headings, just like file folders on your computer. And what's really special is the site has a built-in share feature. So if you are working in a team of teachers or want to share with students or colleagues, you can just click Share Collection, and all you need is their email address to be able to share that full list of resources with a colleague or friend or family to get them started on the site as well. That's a lot. Again, going back, all of those links are provided here. So I encourage you to spend some time scrolling through that resource list and exploring at your own pace. And if you did not get this ahead of tonight's event, we will be sure to share in a follow-up email along with the link for tonight's event, which you can watch the recording at any time from the same link that you used to join. That's a lot. And with that, I know that's a lot to digest, but I want to pass it back to Susan to wrap us up for the evening.
Thank you so much, Liz. Yeah, it really is sort of a fire hose of resources, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's also been just an amazing time of sharing of just a few of the incredible new ocean technological tools and innovations that are out there. We can't do this particular topic justice in one 90-minute program, as we shared with you all. But we would really, really love to again thank Annette and Dana for the time that they shared with us and their expertise. They are a resource for us. They are a resource for you. They are our scientists of today and the people who are teaching our scientists of tomorrow. So again, thanks to both of you for your time. And folks, if you still have some burning questions, please feel free to send them to us at the email address that you received your registration confirmation from. And if you are interested in a certificate for credit hours for tonight, you can also drop us an email at that same email address. That's my email address, susan.haynes, Haynes, @noaa.gov. And we'd also very much like to thank our team and crew behind the scenes with NOAA Ocean Exploration and also with the University of Rhode Island's Inner Space Center and with Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. Thank you all for being such an important part behind the scenes of our program. And we are going to wrap up the evening, I think, with a view of the word cloud and see what you all came up with as far as your thoughts about this evening. eDNA. Looks like eDNA was popular, Mesobot was popular, the Twilight was popular, and opportunities were popular, and amazing technology. It definitely was amazing technology, and we hope you all gathered some terrific information to take both back to your living rooms and your families and also to your classrooms. And with that, we hope to see you all at another learning event very soon. So until next time, have a great evening and have a wonderful weekend. Thanks so much.